Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the AUD podcast channel. I'm your host, Khaled Abul Jubain. We are honored to have Mishal Kanoo as our guest on the show today. Mishal serves as the chairman of the Kanoo Group, one of the largest independent and longest running family-owned groups of companies in the Gulf region. He is also one of the most iconic business figures in the Middle East, a frequent speaker at conferences, and has a reputation of a futurist and a strategist with a strong track record in forecasting economic developments in the Middle East. In this episode, you'll learn the differences between a formal and informal education, the importance of understanding people, how can we become better communicators, and the power of no. Please join me in welcoming to the show Mr. Mishal Kanoo.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm looking forward to this.
Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. So, Mishal, me and you actually, connected in not a way I usually can find guests, but, inshallah, we'll be launching your very successful podcast soon. And I'm really excited about that. And I've done a lot of research. And one thing that I've always, that I appreciate about you is you don't mind, you're not controversial, but you don't mind going against the grain.
Oh, I can't tell you how happy I am just to hear that sentence, because most people, whenever they put my name, the controversial speaker, and I'm thinking, just because I say something which people might think but won't say, it doesn't mean it's controversial.
I 100% agree, and what I like about that is it's refreshing. I think we need more people like you who are, you're just giving another perspective, like, yes, okay, this, but what about this? This could also be true. This could also be equally important. But anyway, so today's conversation, I want to center around two main things, which is education, business, and a little bit of entrepreneurship, because I know how important education is to you.
Thank you.
Now, what's interesting, the timing of this is funny, because I had for my podcast yesterday with my cousin who is in the ed tech space.
Okay.
Now, we had a long discussion about education and so on. And we got to a point in the show that this question came up, and I'm like, what's your perspective on this? And the question I would like to start with for you is, what is your definition of education?
That's a very, very intriguing question. And I wish more people would ask questions along those lines, because what we have is, we have a certain way of structuring things. Now, if you look at historically how education was done, usually it was done one-to-one. Okay, if you were rich, I don't really care which part of the world. In the old, what's called the old world, whether it's the Greeks or the Islamic world or the Chinese, what happened was a one-to-one. Or if you were a member of a family, it was one teacher who was a polyglot who understood everything, or talked about everything, with several students. The reason why is because you want to have that relationship between the teacher and the student.
Sure.
It's not a distant thing. It's not a continuously changing of teachers and continuous changing of students. It becomes a disruption. There's no continuity over this. Of course, with this day and age, it becomes, I won't say impossible, but very, very hard to perform in such a way. You then end up doing with classes of ratio, or if you're really, really lucky, I'm talking from kindergarten all the way to high school. If you're lucky, it's 1 to 12, 1 to 15.
Yeah.
If you're unlucky, it's 1 to 30, 35 plus, which is not usually ideal, because it means that the teacher has to focus. How can the teacher really focus on the other requirements and the wants of all of these students at the same time? That becomes the hard part. So for me, education it's a relationship.
Relationship.
Yes, because you want the person who you're interacting with. If you don't, it takes a while to trust somebody.
Sure.
So if you're going to get a message from somebody, which is basically what a teacher does, takes an idea or message and passes it on. If you're going to have a trust, it takes a while for you to trust a person. Then you also have the thing that, which I'm sad to see, I can see this, and sometimes with some teachers, they look at it as a job rather than a vocation, which is sad. And then the other one is, as they're the adults, they look at, how do I educate this child? Well, I don't really care so much. I have a curriculum to pass and get through. So that's exactly what I'm going to do, which doesn't give the child an opportunity to understand. Not every child is going to be able to pick up this at the same pace that the professor or the teacher is talking.
Sure. Of course.
Now, I'm talking, this is just to high school. You start talking to university. This is where it becomes even more important, because this is where the high school part, up to high school part, is you're literally teaching them fundamentals and the rudimentaries that they need to understand to be able to take it to the next step. They're putting the building block for the brain to expand.
Yes.
Now you come to university. Now this is where the teacher or the professor, not teacher, but the professor becomes very important. The professor has to have an incredibly good relationship with the student, in that he or she must connect mentally. They must connect with one another, so that student can then start understanding the concepts that the professor is passing on, and then challenge the professor.
Challenge.
So then you have two types of professors. You have a professor who wants you to regurgitate everything that they told you, which might work for some subjects, but you also if you're lucky, have professors who will say, you know what, I've given you the fundamentals, and here's a book that teaches you the fundamentals of what I'm explaining, the subject we're talking about. But now I want you to go and do your own research, and I want you to challenge me. I want you to come up with a new idea I didn't think about. I want you to come up with, if I say 1 + 1 = 2, and you say, no, it's 3, okay? I'm not going to say that you're stupid. I'm going to say, all right, now that you come up with that answer, show me how you came to that conclusion.
Yeah.
Because maybe you've seen a way I didn't see. And professors who have that mentality are the ones who are going to come and actually ignite the imagination of the student. Now, the next question in terms of education, and this is very important. When people talk about, and you hear this a lot in the universities, I want you to think outside of the box, all right? So for 12 years, you've been putting me in that box.
That's actually true. Yeah, I never thought of that.
And you force me to think in that standard. And then for the next 4 years, you if you want me to get a good grade, GPA of 4.0, right? Then I really have to think within that box. And then you tell me, nah, I want you to think outside the box. Why? The question is, why do most entrepreneurs of success that we know of we usually boast, I didn't finish my university or my college. Why? It's because they're literally saying, I was not pigeonholed in that box, and I actually went outside of that box to go and discover something that the box would not allow me to discover. If I stayed in the box, I wouldn't be able to discover it, and so I go outside.
Yeah.
Universities, education as a whole should not be that. That is now the formal side of the education. Now let's talk about the informal side of education. Every day you wake up, you can do one of two things. You can waste your day, or you can learn something.
Mm-hmm.
If you learn something, that's an education. It's informal, but it's an education. You can read about things. You can talk to people about ideas. You can listen. Now you have documentary. By the way, not everyone, you need to keep in mind, everyone who writes something writes it from his or her perspective.
Yeah.
Everyone who tells you something is from his or her perspective. And everyone who documents something in a movie or program is from his or her perspective. They might be generous enough to bring in the third part, another party in, but it's going to be as confined as possible. Your job as a knowledge seeker should be to take from everyone, including those you can't stand.
Yeah. And I think you kind of already segued perfectly to my next question, which was, first of all, it's really interesting and something I never thought of, that the analogy of school and university, and thinking I've been trained to think within a box, and now you're trying to tell me to think outside the box, and that means I have to unlearn my whole basically life up to that point to start thinking differently. And you talked about two types of education, the formal and the informal. Now, and I know you've mentioned in your interviews and podcasts that education has been a key to your success, and the formal was the foundation for you. And then the hands-on experience was, the informal. Now, and you touched on it a little bit, that there's people that didn't get pigeonholed in that box and they went and did something else. So my question to you is, because I'm trying to play devil's advocate, why is it so important to have both if we've seen a lot of success stories that have not done that?
Because the ones who tell you about how successful they've been will not tell you what a successful journey they had prior to, which is the formal side.
Okay.
You need to have. I can't learn how to be an engineer if I don't understand math, and I don't understand algebra, and I don't understand geometry. It doesn't work. I need to have those aspects to be able to do the engineering side. Now, once I have the engineering side, what I do as an engineer with that knowledge, it's either do the normal stuff, or I can then start to create new things, new ideas. So the formal side is important. It's not unimportant. It's important. But to what degree do I let it overwhelm me?
Overwhelm.
Yes, because if that's the only thing I'll be focusing on, then yes, it'll overwhelm me, and then that will be the direction I'm going. And if you look at what you call it, most of our lives, we like conformity. Okay, as humans, we like conformity.
That's true. Yeah.
We want rules and regulations, and we want policies and procedures, and they're the norm, and fine. And that should be the norm for a lot of people. Which, by the way, for a lot of people is a lot of comfort. That's fine. There's no reason. See, recently everyone's been talking about wanting to be an entrepreneur and wanting to create a new business and what. Not everyone's cut out for it, and I don't mean it in a negative way. There's a certain amount of not just education, but built.
Is it a character thing you think, or a personality? Like, can those? I've spoken to people. Can this be learned?
I personally think you can learn techniques in how to be an entrepreneur, how to do things better.
Yeah,
I think you can. This is easy because this is easier because this is what humans do. We can learn techniques, but the ability to take risks, because that's what an entrepreneur is going to do. The ability to take risk is, on the other hand, something that you either have the ability. Some people, you can learn it. Not really, because every time you cringe about... See, what people don't understand is when you're in a job, you're safe to a certain degree. The only worry you have is to be fired. Okay, that's the major worry.
Yeah.
The other worry you have to be is the people you interact with, the job description itself, how hard or how easy it is, how much demand is there on the job. Those are your worries. But you know what? Again, as you go up higher up in the totem pole, it becomes harder and harder. But yet, still, to a certain degree, you are safe.
Mm-hmm.
You're the entrepreneur. There's no safety net. If you can't literally go to sleep because you're thinking constantly about what you're doing, and no one but somebody like you will understand exactly what you're going through. So I hope to God you have a very understanding spouse.
Yeah, for sure.
Because that spouse will not feel what you're feeling, yet has to be supportive and help you along the way. Because simple little things for everybody else is a very complex thing for you. Closing up shop. If you're an employee, close up shop. You go home. You don't worry about it till next day in the morning. You come home, come to the office or to the shop and open the shop, because your idea is for the next 12, however many hours, the world will stay the same.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you're the entrepreneur, the person who actually owns that shop, you're thinking, are the wires okay? Are they going to burn? Is somebody going to rob my shop? Is there going to be an earthquake? I know you're thinking, oh my God, you're really thinking this through. But believe me, an entrepreneur is thinking about this all the time, because he's never quite sure, he or she is never quite sure what new factor is going to come in to affect his or her business. So understanding these aspects in terms of how to best work these things through, how do you teach that? I mean, how do you teach a person from not feeling sick every time he looks at his business, thinking something, some unknown factor is going to come in and affect it?
Yeah.
Also, on the other side, he or she, forgive me, I will tend to focus on a gender because of the ease of the language.
Yeah, I understand.
The person will go into a certain concept or idea, but they will also be able to think past a certain thought. So for a normal person who was working a 9-to-5 job or however long it is, he or she does not really think post a certain concept.
Yeah.
But let's say the entrepreneur is traveling somewhere. He's looking around. He or she is constantly looking around. He's constantly thinking and listening to what another person is saying. How do you teach a person to do that? You don't. You either have it or you don't have it. You are alert or you're not alert. And again, I don't mean this in a negative way for the person who is not an entrepreneur.
Sure.
I just mean it that
Sure.
there's it's a bit more heightened.
Yeah.
So when you're traveling on a vacation, you're looking around thinking, is this something I can do? Is this something I can add to my business? Is this something we should be doing? Should we be adding this to what can we do? What can I take this idea and can I mold it into where I am? These are the ideas you're thinking. You're not thinking of, let's go and really numb the mind and just enjoy the vacation. This just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
In fact, one of the things I tell my friends, and because for me it's a gauge. When I have friends who are, and you can see this by the way, entrepreneurs and business owners versus the person who does a 9-to-5 job. And I say in a movie, because when I watch this ideas just pop in my head. You're watching the Hulk. Okay, the Hulk takes a car, smashes it into the bank, into the building, and then goes to the next one, squashes the car, and moves on forward. And of course, we're only following the exciting part where the Hulk is going to try and grab the bad guy, quote unquote bad guy. Okay, that's what most people concentrate on. You know what's going through my head?
What's going through you?
Okay. How am I, as the owner of the bank or the owner of the car, going to explain to my insurance company how this damage happened?
That's so funny that you...
Because that is a significant thing that happens to an entrepreneur whose business can be affected by outside factors, unusual factors.
Yeah.
How do you explain this thing? Because my business then stops. Imagine the bank has been the car happens to be the way I transport myself from place to place, and this is my business.
Yeah.
Okay, it's squashed. I need to get another car. I need to explain to the insurance, hey, pay me the money to go help me get another car. And how do I explain it? Because my whole life stops because of this. But you need to think along those lines.
Yeah.
Again, it's just, I know it's an exaggeration of an idea, but this is the way an entrepreneur will be thinking about things.
Yeah. No, and I love that analogy that you said, and I think everything you're talking about really comes back to the essence of it, which is managing risk. Now, I know in your experience when you first started out, it was interesting. I didn't know that you worked outside the company, and then you came back, and you said that having your own experience added a dimension that no book or person can give you. And I think when we're bringing it back into the entrepreneurial space, I think that mindset is what relates to the risk. So if I have to go out and take that risk and be an entrepreneur, and I've decided this is what I want to do, what advice would you have to me in terms of how to, I guess, manage that risk? Because risk is going to be a wave. There's going to be times that are super risky and times that are, a lot more relaxed. So how do I manage those ebb and flows for longevity?
Well, there is no ebb as far as risk is concerned when you're as an entrepreneur. You're constantly worried about these things. Now, it might be heightened, but something that is in front of you. But it's always your subconscious is always thinking about external factors that are going to come and affect your business, and how to best react to them, or hopefully, if you're lucky, already thought this through prior to it happening. And sometimes there's no way you can figure out everything that's going to happen. Like last I checked, we're not immortal as far as that's concerned. But the idea of learning these things, why does this matter? One of the things I actually benefited from going to work for Arthur Andersen, which is at one point was one of the world's best auditing firms, is not the audit itself, although that gave me an insight into how different businesses are run. It's the interactivity within an organization. So you start to understand how people interact with one another. You're no longer. One of the things I really appreciated there is it didn't really matter what my last name was, because for this part of the world, my last name carries something as far as a trading house is concerned.
Sure.
But they didn't look at me that way. They said, okay, you have the education, You have the knowledge. I want you to interact. And I had managers who were really nasty managers, but I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I don't appreciate them,
Yes.
but I appreciate
The lesson.
the lessons I got
Yes.
from, because it made me start to understand, okay, these are things I need to be aware of. These are things I need to get done. There are things that are unfair that will happen. How do I react to them? How do I focus on trying to not let this be the main thing that drives my life, if you want?
Yeah.
So it really mattered, and it helps a person filter what's the most important thing he or she should be focusing on to something that's less and to less. I believe in some business business world, they call this, you start looking at mission critical issues.
Okay.
Once once you've covered the mission critical issues, meaning that the mission will not fail because of that, then you start looking at the smaller things that are start to annoy you and how to overcome them. Then you look at the things that are very personal.
Yeah.
Because we are humans and we will personalize things, even though we say we're professional. No, we're not. Everything we do is subjective.
Yeah.
We're not machines, so it's an objective thing to get done. We are subjective. We will bring our biases into whatever we do. Our biases might be positive, it might be negative, it might be personal, it might be very constructed in our heads.
Mm-hmm.
It might have nothing to do with the person in front of me. But I finished. I perceive this thing, and I'm going to apply it. So now, how do you interact with that person? If you're talking about your own business, and you're hiring, and then there could be nothing more worse than picking the wrong hire.
Yeah, you hear that a lot, especially at the beginning, that your first hires are the most critical and usually the ones that you make the biggest mistakes with.
That's because you come with an idea that everybody is as genuine as you, and not everybody is. You come with the idea that everybody is looking for the same thing you're looking for. I mean, not everybody is. And let's face it, human nature is we are, if I'm being ungenerous, we're deceitful. If I'm being generous, we leave a bit of the truth out. We're not going to show you
Not the full story.
the negative side of what's going through our heads.
Yeah.
And the reason we do that is because we have a goal to get to, and we know if we give you the whole picture, you're never going to take it.
Yeah.
Right. Case in point, silly example, but you have a car, the car has a dent, you fix the dent, and then you paint the thing. Do you tell the person you're going to sell the car to, oh, by the way, there's a small dent there? Or there was a small dent?
Probably not.
Not.
Yeah, probably not. Yeah.
But are you being unfair to the person who's buying the car? Depending on how you look at it, some people will say yes, and other people will say no.
Yeah.
Again, are we talking about a major crash?
Yeah.
Then yes, you have to say it. But if it's just a small dent, doesn't really matter, because in life, the car is going to go through many dents.
Exactly.
But is that your call to make, or the other party's call to make? Now, if you make that call, the other party will surely use that against you.
Sure. Of course. Yeah.
And that's why we don't do that. And that's why when you try to hire the person, he or she is never going to tell you, oh, by the way,
Yeah.
I'm XYZ.
Yeah. And I think I really like that example because it shows that even now, especially with like social media and all these platforms that we always try to portray a certain image in the world, and only maybe a certain close select group will actually know the full story. And me and you actually have talked about this in your office, and you were saying that is one of the biggest, frustrations that you have, that sometimes a lot of the time you're never going to get the full picture of the story. But I just want to bring it back to education for a second. So this was really interesting. So while you had in your interview with the president of the University of St. Thomas, you were talking about how you studied philosophy and theology. And at the time you were asking yourself, why do I have to take this? Why is this important to me? And I'm sure a lot of university students, myself included, everyone at some point has thought that. But down the line, you said it sunk in. So I'm curious, I know there must be many examples, but what was maybe the first time you're like, okay, I get that?
On the issue of philosophy and theology?
On the issue of it sunk in, what you learned at university sunk in years later when you didn't expect it.
It's hard to say, to show you a eureka point.
Okay.
I can't think of one.
Yeah.
But what you can see is that as you because what we fail to understand in a business sense, the importance of a person's philosophy. Religion is just a heavenly philosophy. It's one philosophy would be thought with human bias,
Yeah.
and religion is thought with God bias. Okay. I know this very simplistic term, and please God, don't let anyone what you call think I'm being immoral in what I'm saying. This is the whole point I'm trying to say is that in order for you to understand the person you're interacting with, if you don't understand his or her religion, and by the way, when I say his or her religion, the religion matters because you think, oh, well, some people who are non-religious whatsoever, that's a religion too. Okay, it's a culture, because the religion is from the religion. This culture stems from the religion.
Yeah.
And the interaction and the behavior and the person's thoughts and processes comes from his culture, which comes from his belief system, which is religion. If he is non-religious, then it's his philosophy, which again, by the way, strangely, will stem from his religion. But if you don't understand that, then you won't understand what are the issues that bother that person, or that person likes, that matters to that person, or that doesn't matter to that person. How can I interact with you and give you the best I can in a way that you will accept if I don't understand what is your philosophy, what's your religion, your thought process? I need to understand that. For example, when you talk to Japanese, for them, to be organized, to be structured, is paramount. I cannot come as a chaotic person trying to talk to them and say, yeah, you just accept me as the way I am. I have a wonderful thought, a wonderful idea. I don't look at the way I'm talking to you. Just focus on the content.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't work. And if I came to an American, most Americans, and I know America is I mean, it's really massive from all the way from New York to Los Angeles in terms of
It's like different
everything
world
between.
There's different worlds.
But in general, there is a informality that exists within the American mindset.
Okay.
I can't come with a very formal structure and say, oh no, you can't do this before you do that. You can't do this before you do that. If I did that, then they will shut down. They will not accept what I'm trying to talk about. Some people might, but majority will not. If I come tell them what you call it, there has to be conformity. It has to be done in this way. And the American mindset wants to have a bit more relaxed approach towards it.
Yeah.
If I came to somebody within, and I'll lump them because we literally have the same mentality, whether it's an Arab, and I don't care which country you're from, or someone from Turkey, or someone from Iran, or someone from the Indian subcontinent. Well, we literally have the same mentality. And I was even jokingly insulting his mother. But that's it. The conversation stops.
It's done.
Right?
Yeah.
In certain cultures, you can make these jokes between your friends, and you can laugh about these things. And for me, they are. I can't even accept them, even as an enlightened person, because again, it comes back to my religion and the philosophy I've learned. I can't accept these things. And no matter how much I try to be open-minded, I can't accept it. So if you don't understand these aspects, then how do you interact with people of the different? Because we're not in a isolated country where I only talk to the people within my own structure. Who are like me, who think like me. It doesn't work that way. This world is we have in Dubai there are over 200 different nationalities over here. I can't take them the same way as I would take my. I can't interact with them the same way I interact with myself, and I can't expect them to interact with me
the way they normally would.
Correct.
Yeah.
So by understanding the philosophy, understanding the religious background, understanding what is important to them, then it makes sense, and you can talk to them in a way that's easier. By the way, I'll give your listeners a little intrigue. I didn't know this, and test it. If you think I'm wrong, test it. With most Western, and I'm emphasizing this, with most Western Christian societies.
Mm-hmm.
Now, whether they believe or they don't believe, that's secondary. It's the culture that's stem through from what you call from their belief system.
Yeah.
If you want to get a point across to them, the magic number is 3.
3.
Yes. If I write you a letter, it's an introduction, it's the middle, and it's the summary. 3. If I'm doing a presentation, 3 points. If I'm talking about something, it's I don't know why, but that's a magic number that works. Is 3, and it fits and filters. And you can expand that 3. You can make those 3 segments as big as you want, as small as you want.
Sure.
But it's 3. The more you can do, the more you put on board, the more you lose them.
Yeah.
The more you focus on that 3.
Yeah.
Seems to work. I don't know why. Oh, I'm sorry.
Please.
Also for the benefit of your listeners, within the Arab world, if you come and talk to me directly, and I don't mean me as a Mishal, no, I mean me as any Arab, directly, and you don't ask about my health, my family, what's happening around me. If you don't do those things, I can assure you, I will not be so engaged with you. It's the way it is. Again, this comes back to the philosophy of the person. This comes back to the culture that the person comes from. And again, it comes back from the religion, because the religion emphasizes community.
Yeah. It emphasizes those specific points. And I really love the examples that you gave, because first of all, I didn't know about 3. I never heard about that before, but it's now for the future, it's good to know. And you talk about how can you communicate efficiently with someone if you don't truly understand them and where they're coming from. And you're 100% right that, it stems from the culture, it stems from the religion, it stems from, and that emphasizes the mindset and like shapes your world in a way. Now, so this is something that on the concept of understanding, okay, because this is a word that gets thrown around a lot, and I've been playing around with it in my head. So we talk about the importance of communication and understanding, right? I have 2 questions. Number 1, because if I truly understand you, does that mean I have to agree with you?
Oh, you want me to answer that one?
Yeah.
No.
Because then define, how do you know when you truly understand someone then? Because it gets sometimes, when, for example, you're arguing, with your spouse, for example. I have a perspective, she has a perspective, and we're communicating. Now, once I hear hers, I'll understand it. I can understand, I'm like, okay, I get that. But that doesn't change, for example, my stance or how I feel about it. So what benefit have I gained from this understanding? That's my question.
Communication doesn't necessarily mean conformity. I don't need everybody to agree with me.
Okay.
I need you to hear my perspective, my point of view.
Okay.
Now, there are times when you're having an argument with your spouse, and that's the closest thing I can think of, because you're constantly with your spouse.
Yeah.
Or your child. You need to hear the argument that's being made. Then you need to do something which is very hard. Step down from your high horse. Meaning, I'm right, you're wrong. Maybe what they're saying, there's something in there I didn't think of. Now, our natural reaction is, when it's happening, is I don't want to give in.
Yes.
We don't think that, but we're acting that.
100%.
That's fine, because it's an argument that's happening. But step back, go away, consider what was said to you, and come back. Now, there's nothing wrong. See, we have this impression, if I back away from the point I started with, then my point was wrong.
Yeah.
Okay? No. These points that we have are based on perspectives and points of view that we've learned or we understood, because that's the information we got. Now, if the information changes, I should be intelligent enough to say, you know what, based on this new information that I've gotten, which I actually accept. Now, if it's forgive me, but if it's garbage information, then just throw it aside.
Yeah.
But if it's information that resonates with you and it says, oh, you know what, this is actually a new perspective I didn't think of. You don't have to, at the moment, agree. It would be nice if you could, but but you don't have to.
Sure.
But you need to go back.
Yeah.
rethink it. Does this make sense? Go back and discuss it now with the same person from their angle, and try to understand. See, the point shouldn't be I'm right, you're wrong. The point should be I want to get to the ideal as best as I can answer.
Yeah.
Even if it means my initial stance was wrong, so what? I made a mistake. We all make mistakes. The question is, how humble are you? See, in everything, whether you're in business, whether you're talking to your spouse, whether hell, even when you're talking to yourself, the question is, can I control my ego? And that's the hardest part. You know, it's incredibly hard when you're dealing with people and you have an opponent to be gracious to your opponent when your opponent has lost.
Yeah, we typically would go kick them when they're down.
Correct. And that, by the way, also shows your character. Okay? If you, as a person, if I'm as a person, I'm able to say, you know what, I won. You know I've won. I don't need to rub it in your face. Khalas. And we fix things based on that understanding that this is the new norm.
Yes.
If you are a egotistical, I don't want to use nasty words here because that's what I
understand.
Arrogant person.
Yes.
Then that's what you want to do. You want to just rub it in the person's face saying, I won, you lost. I won, you lost. And if you do that, what you're doing is you're building up resentment.
Yeah.
And today he or she might have lost. But tomorrow they win. It shows your character.
Yeah.
And when you interact, this is, by the way, best seen in any negotiation that happens.
Exactly. And you were talking about the importance of understanding and communication and so on, because if we end up in a position that it's the us versus them mentality, we're always going to lose.
Of course. There's no ifs and buts about that. Again, you might win immediately, but over on the long term, you're not going to win. Okay? Because the moment you don't have the power, I assure you they're going to rise up against you. But this is the one thing that is significant in our part of the world that I don't see so much. The mentality I see is different than what is required. We need to have more awareness about this, which is, again, in terms of negotiation. How do I negotiate? I cannot negotiate with a zero-sum mentality. I win, you lose. It doesn't work that way. It has to be, I need to give you something to win so that you can also come on board. It's not, I'm punishing you, I'm right, you're wrong, you have to listen to me. It doesn't work. It has never worked, other than for a short term when the vanquished has the control over the victor has power over the vanquished. That's it.
Yeah.
So it's a very short window. But if you want to have it a long term, you want to have people buy into. I'll give you examples of how you can see that where it's intelligence to utilize graciousness with your victim, because then you'll suck him into your idea. That's what you want, to bring him into your idea.
So kill him with kindness.
Not necessarily.
Okay.
World War World War II. The United States did something hideous. Not once, twice, which is dropping the atomic bomb. Okay. It was for me, as far as I'm concerned, it's immoral no matter what you say. But when they went and they took over for that short period of time after the end of when the Japanese government surrendered, they could have come in and said, okay, khalas, now we're going to erase all your history. We're not going to do it. They were smart. They said, no. We'll leave the emperor in his place. It'll be more now symbolic rather than actual, meaning someone who can make executive decisions.
Yeah.
For symbolic. We will bring in the families who were part and parcel of making this happen, were the growth engines, and we let them function. We'll help them understand we're not here to destroy everything that is Japanese. To the point that the Japanese started absorbing silly things that the Americans used to brought into, like baseball, for God's sakes. I mean, I don't know why anyone likes that sport, but still, they absorbed that.
Yeah.
The language, the culture, it started to be accepted. Sorry, certain aspects of the culture were absorbed into the Japanese culture. They didn't say, you know what, you were nasty with us. We don't want to ever talk to you. We don't have anything to do with your culture, because it was done in a way that says, okay, I won, khalas. Now I don't want to rub it in. I want you to accept certain ideas that we have, but you keep your whatever was yours, you keep it, and you keep them. So I want you're going to stay with conformity, you're going to stay with formality, etc. I'm not changing that.
Yeah.
In negotiation, when we have negotiations, it should also be the same way. I need to come and say, you know what, we're negotiating something. What do you want? What do I not? You want. I'm never going to get 100% of what I want. You're not going to get 100% of what you want. But is 68% of what you want enough? At least to build on for now. Is 70%? Is 55%? Whatever the case is. How much do you need so that I can start saying, okay, now I'm getting closer to you and you're getting closer to me? And with the best negotiator ever is a word that was used for one of the Khulafa al-Rashidin, the first Umayyad Khalifa. His name is Muawiyah. And they call it Sha'rat Muawiyah, which is the hair of Muawiyah. And his argument in negotiation, no, it was not business negotiation, it was political, but still, it could be used, is that if the people pulled, I released. And if they released, I pulled. Meaning I never allowed that hair to snap. There's a constant negotiation, constant give and take. I need to make sure they feel my wrath when they need to feel it in a negotiation. I need to know I'm serious about this. And they need to know I'm willing to give in, even though it's something significant to me. But I'm willing to give in because it'll make the negotiation go smoother and it can function. But people's egotism kicks in and they think, no, I'm right, you're wrong. And guess what? I'm not going to negotiate with you.
Yeah. You're starting out, and that's, first of all, that's such a great example, and I love how you talked about when they pull away, he'd release, and when they went back, he pull it back. So in a negotiation, there's that ebb and flow, and like you said, the ego is probably the hardest thing we have to manage as people, and I think we can dive into ego for an hour, me and you together. But I think it's really important. There's something you said there about being humble, and I think going in with that mindset is important, but also, like you said, to show the wrath when is needed. Now, I'm going to take that humble thing and bring it back to your time as a visiting lecturer at the University of Sharjah. I feel if I came back, for example, to AUD and I taught something, I feel that's, number one, a very humbling experience, and number two, I'd like to ask you, what did you learn as your time as a professor? And could you tell us about, I don't know if you used it in your class, but can you tell us about the talking stick?
The talking stick actually was something I learned at University
of St. Thomas. Okay.
I'll get back to that, because actually there were two experiments that I was taught in organization behavior, which I thought I can't tell you how much they resonated in my head.
Sure.
But we'll keep that aside. On the issue of teaching at the American University of Sharjah, I went there not because it's fun. Getting in and out of Sharjah is never fun. the drive to and from is not fun.
Yeah.
But there's nothing more. The thing that causes happiness than when you can see an idea being transmitted from you to somebody else. When they get that idea, you've done something great. It's not a building. It's not making a ton of money, because they're insignificant. But to give an idea to somebody else, now what they do with that idea is something is up to them. But to be able to give them an idea, and you can see that they are acknowledged, a new thought process has come into their heads. That's the most, I want to use a word, but I don't think this is appropriate word, okay? So I won't use that word. Exciting concept, because you feel that you've helped someone. You know that you've helped someone. You know that you've passed on something significant. You've given somebody something more important than any money will ever give them, than any building will ever give them, than any item, product will ever give them. Because once they have an idea, it's theirs. Nobody can, and I tell my kids this all the time, learn, because everything you learn is yours. Nobody can take that away from you. I can take away your money, I can take away your car, I can take away your building, I can take your clothes. I can't take away your idea. It's your idea, your thought, your process. Learn. This is very important. Once you have that concept, it's yours. And so for me, that was the most exciting and humbling at the same time. Humbling because it makes you, there's a certain amount of joy and happiness that, you've given an idea. You're actually giving it away. And you're happy you're giving it away. And it's the most rewarding thing is when you have your students after communicate with you saying, that was a great idea you gave me. Okay? And you feel so warm inside, not because you're feeling good about yourself. No, it's because you actually understood, I've done it. I've actually helped somebody.
You've been of service.
Exactly. It's helping a person, helping somebody else is much more rewarding than getting something. I don't know how to explain this, but that's much more fun.
And fulfilling, I could imagine, as well.
Having and giving and making other people happier. How many times have you come across this? A child is shouting and screaming, and the first thing you think is, oh, hit the child. Right? How much more satisfying would it be to go and find out what's causing the child to cry and trying to help the child overcome that issue? And then watching that smile on that, because the smile on the child's face is more genuine than you will encounter the rest of your life with all other people. It's just simple as that. So making that child happy is a genuine happiness. It's not I'm smiling because I want to make you happy.
It's
on the issue of the talking stick. Actually, there were two experiments. The talking stick was the first one, and this is important, by the way, because it has communication. And oh my God, we don't communicate. Dear God, we don't communicate. We talk above one another. We talk to one another. We don't talk with one another. That's the problem. So the argument our professor got us in a seating circle, and he gave a stick, and one person held the top and one held bottom. And in order for you to get the stick to talk about any subject you wanted, you had to regurgitate the idea, not the words, that the other person was talking about. And if you got it right and the other person said, yes, you got my idea, then you had control over the stick. And then you gave an idea, and the other person who was holding the stick, end of the bottom end of the stick, had to regurgitate the idea, the concept. And the idea is that I want you to actually actively listen. I don't want you to hear something. I want you to listen. And the only way you can prove that you've listened to what I said is you give me the idea in your own words of what we were talking about. That was the first one. And I thought it was brilliant because it means that you have to pay attention. The second one, and I wish people would do this, not only in their business, but even in their personal lives. He put all of us in, he paired us up as two, and he put us facing one another in front of desks. And he said, for the next 2 minutes, I want you to be silent, and I want one of you to think of something, and I want the other person to just observe the other person. Okay. So after 2 minutes are over, he said, okay, the one who thought of the idea, I don't want you to talk. The one who was observing, I want you to tell me exactly what that other person was thinking. And we were all laughing. How the hell are we supposed to know what the other person was thinking?
Dude, that's
what he said. Exactly. Don't assume you understand what the other person's thinking. You need to communicate to get what they're thinking. And once you get that idea, then you can start negotiation or arguing or debating. But before that, don't make that assumption.
those are. I first of all, I love the talking stick experiment. I think it's such a, like you said, such a good way to teach you how to listen and how to actually understand what the other person is talking about. But the second one, I've never heard that before, and that is even for me right now. I'm like mind blown. I'm like, wow, like to never assume. And I think we in life we assume a lot. And I really like what you said, that we communicate. We don't usually communicate with each other. It's usually from different levels. So coming from those different levels, you're not going to be able to have a true and engaging and, I guess, honest conversation.
By the way, you know why we do that?
No, I'd love to hear.
It's because we don't look at each other as peers. We have positions. I'm superior, and we won't say it. We're thinking it.
Yeah.
I'm superior to you, or I'm inferior to you. Oh, and by the way, the best, if you wanted to see how people interact with one another, this is a comedic show that happened in the 70s. It's brilliant even today if you watch it, and it will show you. This is an exaggeration.
Yeah.
Okay, but it will give you an idea of how people are. The program is called Faulty Towers.
Okay.
And in Faulty Towers, there's a hotel manager. His name is Basil Fawlty. And Basil Fawlty is an epitome of British middle class.
Okay.
And he has two settings. And people do this in their heads all the time. It's just, as I said, this is exaggerated, but we do that on a more minuscule scale. If he feels that he is inferior to the person he's talking to, as the other person comes from a higher class, he will bend over backwards to see, how can I fulfill your wishes? And everything you want, I will try to get done. So your world is what matters and my world doesn't. On the other hand, if he feels that you are inferior to him, you're a lower class, then he thinks that he should squash you. And you have no say whatsoever in his world. He's right. He knows everything better. You don't. You're not important. We do that in our heads all the time. When we think, I'm superior to him. Now, by the way, superiority can be many ways. It manifests its way in many, many things. It could be, I'm older than you. I know better. That's when we talk to children.
Famous one, yeah.
Huh? I'm of this tribe, you're not. I'm of this religion, you're not. I'm of this culture, you're not. Even if we are of that culture, religion, tribe, etc., I have a better education, you don't. I have more money, you don't. And so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Okay? But we put these factors in our heads.
Yeah.
Rather than thinking this person in front of me has as much a right as I do to think, act, and say what he or she wants. And if that happens, I'm more open to the idea of listening to the other party.
Yeah. I've never thought about that, and of the positioning that you're talking about, and it's so true. Like, even I think I'm not gonna lie, in my life I've had those thoughts. I know, so it's normal and it's subconscious, but I've never, I guess, paid too much attention to it until, like, you brought it up in that way. And bringing it back to the university and what you learned, and that feeling that I love how you described it. Like, you transmitted, like, it's like magic, an idea. It's not tangible. It's someone's head, and now their perspective has changed forever. And for me, that is the most beautiful thing you can do. And that's why I do podcasts, so that I can always, every conversation, I get to have that kind of experience. I wanted to come on to the power of no. So I know in your office, I don't know if it's still there, you had Kella on the wall, and the story behind it, and please, I'm not going to, hopefully I don't butcher it. So every time you would go to your uncles, I think Ahmed and Mohammed, they would say, I don't know if it was them.
No, it was my uncle Abdullah more.
Oh, Abdullah. Okay, apologies for that.
That's okay.
So you go to them with an idea, and it's like an automatic no, and you go again and no, and you would get frustrated. And the reason he was telling you that you found out is the power of no makes you think, forces you to think of everything. And so, and all of us, I think, in negotiations, in life, we always are looking for, yes, I want that validation. Yes.
Right.
So what is the benefit from your perspective, or why is the power of no such a powerful mindset to operate from when you're analyzing any situation, whether it's business, relationship, a communication, a negotiation? I think this applies across the board.
If you start, and by the way, I apply this to my business. I will start from a negative. No is the easiest way of looking, but it's a negative, as in when I get a business plan. By the way, I've never come across a business plan that it's 100%. I've never seen that. But hey, if you come across one, please, I'd love to hear. I'd love to see that.
Yeah.
But I need to find all the door shutting factors. Because once I know those, then I can try to find the keys that will open those doors. My uncle inadvertently forced me to start to think along those lines. Every time I got a no, and what you can do is, what happens is, no, and then put a wall. Now, once the wall's there, and you look at the wall, you can sit and look at that wall forever, and the wall's not going to move. It's not going to change. It's an inanimate object. But you have choices. So it's a wall in front of you. Can I scale the wall? Can I dig under the wall? Can I go around the wall? Can I use a friend to go over the wall? I mean, you need to find ways around that.
Sure.
But if you didn't know that the wall existed and you were running in front and then all of a sudden, poof, the wall hits you, you'll be unhappy.
True.
I'd rather know about no first, or the negative first, or the issues that I will go encounter first, which will block this thing from happening. So that at least I then start saying, okay, maybe I now try to look for the alternatives. So if I encounter that, I already have the answer, or at least an answer to be able to try to apply. Maybe there's a hidden door in that wall. I just haven't looked, because the door and the wall look alike. I just need to know. So no actually is not a negative thing if you use it for overcoming something.
Yeah.
If you just take it as in its absolute form, meaning no, and it stops you, then it'll kill any idea that you want to take forward. By the way, and my wife is going to hate me for this, but she comes up with, and honestly, she comes up with some brilliant ideas, but to apply them, she thinks it can be done immediately, and this is very easy. We can get this done. And when I start showing her the roadblocks, it's not because I want to kill the idea. It's because I want her to go and find a way around it. I don't want to do it for her. No, not because I can't, but it's her idea. She should be following through. And the same thing with my kids.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be, I shouldn't answer. I'm here as a resource.
Yeah.
I'm here to help.
You're a sounding board.
But it's your project, your idea. Do it. But go through the. I'm going to show you the things that you're going to encounter. Other people are going to go smile and laugh and go, yes, it's a fantastic idea. Go ahead and do it. And then you discover later, oh, what the hell? Nobody told me about this thing. So my job is to say, okay, here are the issues you're going to encounter. I'm not telling you no. For her, it sounds like I'm saying no, but I'm not. I'm trying to say these are issues you encounter.
Yeah.
Find ways to overcome them.
Yeah.
Once you overcome them, instead of being shocked by saying, oh, dear God, what the hell? I wasn't expecting this. You can fix these things. And it's amazing how a person, when they start to realize that, I've been accused several times of being negative. I'm not negative. It's not I don't like ideas. I want ideas. But let's make these ideas something that's actually feasible, something that's actually capable. You might have a great idea. The time is wrong. The place is wrong. The people are wrong. It's not that the idea is wrong. It's just not ready now. It's like, imagine me bringing about Wi-Fi to somebody who's not even heard of electricity. The idea of Wi-Fi is a great idea, but they haven't reached that point.
Yeah.
So is the idea a great idea? Yes. Can the people understand what you're talking about? No, obviously not, because they haven't gotten to that place.
Yeah.
But now, when the people are ready for it, it's like when you teach somebody.
Sure.
I can't come to my son who's 6 years old or 10 years old or whatever the case, son or daughter, not being sexist here. I can't come to my child at 6 years old and try to explain to it, unless the child happens to be a phenomenon, about calculus. They'll be looking at me like, huh?
Mm.
But once the child has learned arithmetics, has learned algebra, has learned trigonometry, and I start talking about calculus, it can click.
Yes.
So I need to prepare the way to get the child to be able to be receptive for the idea.
Yeah.
That's why I said it's not the ideas that are bad. It's maybe the timing is wrong, maybe the place is wrong, maybe the geography is wrong.
Yeah.
But if I don't have these issues, these negativities, to be able to focus and think about them first, then no matter what I do, I'm going to fail at one point. And I'd rather not fail.
Yeah, for sure. But I love what you said about that the doors sometimes could look the same. And I think that's something that I relate to a lot. And speaking about, your wife, my dad is exactly the same. For years, I always go to him with an idea, and he'd always, not like you said, he's not not shutting me down, but he's like, have you thought of this and that? And I'm like, but why are you making me think of these things? This is really good. He's like, yeah, but there's this and that and that. And what you said, I think that mindset applies to also entrepreneurs, kind of what we talked about, managing risk. This is operating from that mindset and thinking of all the different things that could go wrong is gonna, I guess, it's not gonna protect you, but it's gonna help. It might help mitigate some unexpected things that might come up.
Correct.
So taking that now and applying it to technology.
Okay.
So technology, you mentioned that technology is a tool that helps businesses. Now, me and my cousin yesterday were having this discussion on the podcast about AI and the internet, and we're talking about how the internet allowed you to, open up the world to research, to connections, to be able to do business. And now AI is that next level, and now it's enabling you to replace capabilities. So my question was, what's your perspective on AI in the education field? And the reason I ask is, for example, I have an 18-year-old sister. And who uses ChatGPT, and there's papers, and I know, and it's so funny. There's ChatGPT to write it for me, and then because there's apps now that can track it. So, but oh no, don't worry. There's another app I can put it in, so it won't be tracked, and then I will submit it, and it will work. So sorry, Sus, but my question is I've been having this conversation a lot recently. Is it a hindrance? Or is it gonna amplify our knowledge and what we can do? What do you think? Because I think naturally we're lazy. Like human nature is lazy.
Well, I don't know about lazy, but we will certainly try to find the easiest way around.
That's what I'm trying to say.
The effort and energy we take into scheming, if we actually put that into actually learning something, would be much more useful.
True.
But instead, we will try to find ways around things and scheme and create new. Anything is a tool. A knife is a tool.
Mm-hmm.
You can use it to cut a steak, or you use it to kill a person. Okay, it's a tool. It's very objective. It has no morality attached to it. And AI is the same way, at least at present, anyway. We haven't got to the point of what they call singularity. No, well, let's put that on side, because that frightens the living hell out of me. But it's a tool. So now, if I use ChatGPT or any of these AI programs, it gave me the skeleton.
Yes.
That's fine. It's solving me. It's like a calculator. The calculator, I don't need to, I really need to memorize the times table? I don't need it for the calculation part, but it makes my mind sharp. That's what I need it for.
Yeah.
I have a calculator that can do calculations, terrific calculations. Does it mean that I don't need to calculate certain things? No, I do. But the calculation is one part of the formula. And likewise, in the case of the ChatGPT, it's going to give me a very generic, so at least so far, it's going to give me a very generic response.
Yeah.
What I do with that, how I enhance it, is up to me. Or, if for lack of another way of putting it, if I could have a cake machine that does the inside of a cake, great. It's going to be a standard sponge cake or something like that. Now, how I decorate the cake, that's me. That's not the machine that's going to do it, that's me. It doesn't have the understandings of at least I'm talking on what is present. I don't know what's going to happen in the future, but what is present.
Sure.
It doesn't have the intricacy. It doesn't have the artisanal mindset, the eye, etc. It doesn't have that as of yet. So I do. As a human, I do. But if it saves me the time of wanting to build the inside of the cake and it does that, great. So now that you just give me the skeleton, let me build the flesh, the rest of it.
Yeah.
That is what any of these tools should be utilized. Now, again, because we are always going to try to find the easy way around, what we think is the easy way around. What we're literally doing, is we're teaching ourselves to be lazy.
Yes.
Mentally lazy. Now, even if a calculator exists and I can calculate in my head, I would use the calculator to affirm my calculation. But I want to calculate it in my head first. Not because I can't go and find the calculator. No, I can. But I want to keep it because it keeps my mind sharp. It makes me think, my calculation is right, have I calculated properly? And then get the calculation on the machine to affirm that the number I got and the number that it got are the same. It keeps the mind sharp.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, if everything's going to be done by everybody else, then what's my role?
That's a good question.
If all decision making could be done by machine, it calculates all the because at the end of the day, it's a binary, yes, no, 1, 0, etc. If all the things can be done by machine, then what role do I play? What added value is in business? What added value do I add?
Sure.
If my professor wanted a paper, the professor who gives you that homework doesn't want a paper to read because he has nothing else to do. Okay, it's not like he hasn't read what you call enough books.
Sure.
But what he wants to know is, what have you understood?
Yeah.
Because he's gauging you.
Yeah.
If you think you can bypass that professor, good for you. But you're the one who's going to end up being dumb, not the professor. You think you bypassed the professor, got a good grade? Yeah, good for you. The professor, honestly, other than being pissed off the fact that you're trying to trick him or her, is going to be pissed off.
Yeah.
But the next cohort comes on and he or she
Life
forgets.
goes on. Exactly. Yeah.
But you've lost because you didn't utilize your brain. You didn't utilize your thought process.
Yeah.
You didn't utilize a tool to benefit you without being the only thing. The tool is the only thing that's there.
Yeah.
Where's your contribution to this thing? If you don't contribute to it, then it's just a tool.
Yeah. So it's not you're saying it's not, and from in that example, it's not, you're not using it to benefit you, you're using it to replace you.
You just don't realize it. This is the part. We just don't realize it. And it's only once it's passed, then you go, crap.
Yeah.
I should have remembered that. But it's too late.
Hindsight's a beautiful thing, unfortunately. Mishal, I just have one last question for you because I want to be, two more questions for you because I want to be conscious of our time. And this is a special one for me because I only found, so this is a quote, okay? And I only found out about this quote yesterday. I'd never heard it before. And when I heard it, and you were coming on the show today, I'm like, I feel this perfectly describes Mishal. Okay, so I want to see if it resonates with you. So the quote is from Plato, all right? No one is more hated than he who speaks the truth. How do you feel
I just did a mental collapse and got up. By the way, truth is subjective.
Of course, yes.
But let's assume it's, in this case, it's an objective truth.
Yeah.
Why do people hate the truth? Because it forces us to think of something we don't want to think of. I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. And I hope to God you never experience this, and I hope to God anyone who has will understand this and never fall in this trap. Because it does happen. And again, if it's going to sound sexist, I'm sorry, it's not meant to be. You can apply it to any gender. But it does seem to tend towards one gender more than the other. So the argument goes. A wife tells her husband, what do you call it? Listen, I know you've been cheating on me. Just admit it. And the husband was like, starts thinking in his head. Well, she already knows, so I might as well just tell her. Yeah, I have been cheating on you. And that's when everything collapses. And everything goes to hell and high water. Why? She just told him prior to that she thinks that he's cheating on her. But what happened is when he told her the truth, he affirmed that. And when he affirmed that, she now knows. It was a thought before, now it's knowledge. And the world changes. So when people say the truth, you might think it, you might suppose it, but when somebody affirms it to you, and it's affirmed in your head, your life shifts. You cannot go back to what it was before. This is why people don't like the truth. Because you're forcing me to take decisions or actions I might not feel comfortable or happy about. I might know exactly what you're talking about. But it's when you affirm it, when it's being affirmed through action or through words or through something that affirms this, then now I can't go back to what it was before. I have to now change.
Yeah.
And when the spouse learns about the infidelity of his or her spouse, he or she must now make decisions.
Yeah.
You cannot go back to saying, you can try. Even if you say, I'll forgive, you might try to forgive, but in your head, a crack has happened.
Yeah.
And you can't go back to what the crack. It's like a beautiful vase that has a crack. As you put as much cement as one, you try to put it back again, it has a crack. Even if you can glaze it over, the person who cracked it knows it was cracked. That's it. It's done. It's never going to be the same.
Yeah.
Now you can live with that and say, yeah, it's okay. I'm happy with it. But you know that there's been a crack. You cannot go back to it. This is why people hate when people tell them a truth that they know. By the way, you know ahead of time, but this is a truth or not. You just don't want it to be affirmed.
Exactly. Because, and I think the key point that you're talking about is not only will I have to make decisions now that I might not want to make, the key thing there is I can never go back.
Correct.
I can never go back to that.
And there is one other thing. When something drastic happens, is brought to my attention, and I absorb it, I accept it as truth, there's a certain part of me that, as a human, says, I've lost. And we don't like losing. So I have to accept that I've lost. Do you know how hard that is for humans to, that they won't say it, they won't think it, they're thinking it, they won't say it, they might not show it. But do you know how hard it is for a person to accept that he or she has lost?
Yeah.
And in the case that I gave you, a marital issue, if you've given 15 years or 20 years to a certain idea, you've now have a vested interest in that idea, even if you think it's wrong. And I've come across this, especially in again, we're going to talk about a little bit about religion, but I've heard Anglican ministers within the Anglican Church, who, again, church, God, right? They are Anglican ministers who have a hard time. They say, I have a hard time, which basically means I don't believe anymore. Hard time believing in God. Excuse me, that's your whole life. You want to separate this for the...
Sure.
Now, he or she already has that thought in his or her head. It's done. They just don't want to accept it.
Yeah, the accepting part.
Because once they do that, then the last 20 years of my life have been a waste.
Yeah.
A loss. I can't accept that. That's why you will find them fighting for that, even though they know it's the truth, you know it's the truth, but they don't want to accept it.
Yeah. It's easier when it's just in the air and it's not, confirmed. Because then, like you correctly said, everything changes. Mishal, I have one last question for you.
Sure.
This question we ask all our guests. So the aim of the AUD podcast is two things. Basically, we want to show that there isn't one specific way to be success. Success comes in many forms, and that learning never stops. Now, I know I know it's going to be challenging to answer this question because you have maybe 20 million learnings that you've had. But for example, in my experience, I call it the game changer learning, something I learned that changed everything.
Correct.
So reflecting on, your past, your career, either personally or professionally, if I ask you the question, what was your game changer learning for you? What would you say?
again, I'm not sure I can put a pinpoint
I figured, yeah.
a time that happened, because we're constantly evolving in our thought process.
Mm-hmm.
But there are these eureka points that you might not necessarily hang a flag and say, "Oh, it happened at this time," but you can see an inflection point in your own thought process, and it's really, the more you interact with certain, and I definitely recommend this. Find people who challenge you, not stupid people. Forgive me. No. Then again, stupidity is subjective, but still, you don't want to find people who irritate you.
No, yes, man.
You want to find people who are going to challenge your thought process. One of the things I do, and I know this is a very strange thing to end this subject with, but one of the things I do, I watch a lot of debates on YouTube.
Okay.
I love debates. And I watch the most antithetic, I don't know how to pronounce the word. The thing that goes against my whole grain is atheism. But I want to watch debates, and I don't care what religion, but I want to watch a debate between an atheist and a theological, a person who believes in religion.
Yeah.
I want to watch that because I want to watch the mindset of this person. How does he come to this? How does he or she come to this conclusion? What are his processes? Because it forces me to think how to counter the argument.
Yeah.
Okay, and it cannot be. And this is I find really weird. It's when somebody comes with you with a belief, and you counter with another belief. That might work, but when you have, and this is the part that I find really nuts, when somebody comes to you with a belief, and you counter with logic, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
But we do it repetitively.
Yeah, that's very true.
All the time.
Yeah.
So, ability to watch people like that, on both sides, they're the ones who are a game changer for me.
Yeah.
Because they make me think about things I never thought of.
Yeah.
And I need to think about things I never thought of, because otherwise I'll be back into my little, what you call it, pigeonhole or box where I'm comfortable and never thinking outside the box because this is the box I'm happy with.
Yeah.
And I will never challenge myself. I want to constantly challenge myself, not because I'm a masochist. No, no, but because that's the way you grow.
Yeah.
And that's why you will have constant small game changers or eureka points.
Yeah.
They're constant.
Yeah.
And the more you can do that for yourself, the better you will be for yourself. And more importantly, better you'll be for your society and community, because you're raising the standards rather than lowering the standards. And we need to continuously raise the standards. Universities are a fantastic beacon. How much leeway we allow the professor is also very important. I don't want to cause chaos, but I need to give the professor, in his or her chosen subject, a bit of leeway to bring the non-norm, the non-conformist mindset, and to say, okay, here's the idea that goes against everything I've taught you. Argue it. It causes it causes the youth to think.
Yeah.
And then it sparks something new. And those are the eureka points that we should be all looking for.
Yeah. Wow. I think that's such a beautiful way to end the podcast. I really love what you said about find people that challenge you. And it's not about, it's not from a negative, it doesn't come from a negative place. It comes from helping you think. And I think the whole conversation we've talked about today centers around communication, thinking, understanding, but learning how to learn, I think, is something super important as well. And I love, you've been really great at giving your analogies, it makes it super relatable to me. So I really appreciate you coming on the show, Mishal. This has been a very special conversation for me. I've loved it. And I think anyone listening, student, faculty, professionals, there's so much that we talked about that you can take and apply it to your own life that's going to help you. So I appreciate it.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you, Khaled. I really appreciate it. But I have just one message for both. Actually, it would apply to everyone. I won't tell that to anyone other than starting with myself. Learn. There's nothing more enjoyable than getting knowledge. Nothing. And it doesn't end until the day you decide to end it. Knowledge and the utilization of that knowledge is a prize is a present you give yourself. The more you love yourself, the more you give it yourself.
Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the AUD podcast channel. We really hope that you enjoyed it and learned something from it. We have a lot of incredible guests lined up for you on the show, and we're so excited to bring you their inspiring stories. To stay up to date with all the latest episode releases, please make sure to like, share, follow, and subscribe to the podcast on the AUD Instagram page at AUD Dubai.